We are back for another episode of the Fight HQ podcast. Of course, I'm Jason Foy. That is the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. As we are here to talk UFC 314 goes down on Saturday night down south of me in Miami, Florida. Of course, we have got what will be the vacant featherweight title on the line. Alexander Volkanovski looking to reclaim the title. He takes on Diego Lopes. Our co-main event is a 5-round lightweight matchup. You got Michael Chandler taking on Paddy Pimblett. Pete, how's it going, man?
What's going on, Jason? We have an absolutely stacked card from top to bottom, and it's made it extremely difficult as far as fight prep, fight analysis, all the deep dive with the stats and everything as well, because a lot of these fighters have like really deep records, tremendous amount of UFC experience, outside the UFC in Bellator experience. So regardless, I'm excited to watch this card. But I'm a little skeptical as far as feeling sharp on this card, because I feel like a lot of the fights are so damn close, and I'm having a hard time picking one side or the other. So I definitely need your help here.
Yeah, I mean, this is a solid premium event that the UFC is putting on Saturday. I'm excited to sit on the couch on Saturday night and watch these fights. And I was telling P right before the show, and I put together my first DraftKings contest, and my first lineup had $1,800 left on the table. This is one of those weeks, and especially when you look at the pricing of the main event and co-main event, we can kind of talk about game theory here right at the start. To me, it's hard to avoid the main event and co-main event. A, the fact that they're both scheduled for 5-round fights. B, you're talking about one fight's $8,200 versus $8,000. The other one is $7,800 versus $8,400. Like, to me, now, I will also say this. If you're getting in these big GPP contests, getting away from the main event, co-main event is going to be a great way to separate yourself from the field. But God, when those two fights go off, you're just going to be sitting there praying for boring fights.
Yeah, boring, low volume fights, hoping that something weird happens, because you already know that the masses are going to have both fights a part of their lineups, at least one of them. And you know that most of the live lineups will come down to the co-main event and the main event. So your hope is to find 600 points elsewhere. It's definitely doable. But it's very difficult given the salary of the main event at 8,200 and 8,000, and then the co-main event at 8,400 and 7,800. So, it's one where I may try to avoid the headache of both the main event and the co-main event, because I view them so damn close. But it's one where I have to find 6 other fights that I feel with true, serious conviction that one side's going to win.
Yeah, one of the comments I'll mention that's already come in on the YouTube chat, and I think this is something that a lot of people are going to think about, saying hard to tell if a few vets are shot or not, mentioning Patricio Pitbull, Michael Chandler, Dom Reyes. I would not mention Dom Reyes because of what we have seen from Dom Reyes in his last 2 matchups, both TKO victories, one against Josh Jacoby, the other against Anthony Smith. With Patricio Pitbull and, my other podcast earlier on today, we were kind of talking about this, and it was really in relation to the article that Sean Wheelock had written over MMA Junkie, talking about the greatest 25 Bellator fighters who never compete in the UFC, and when you look at Patricio Pitbull, I do wonder, how much maybe our thought process on him would be different if this was, say, 5 years ago versus a Patricio Pitbull, even though, look, it's a matchup that he is very used to, going up against someone who's much bigger than him. I mean, I would prefer to see Patricio Pitbull at 135 than 145 in the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, Patricio Pitbull is a guy that I have I know a lot of, because I paid attention to him fighting in Bellator. He's a guy that I've always looked up to because he's been so dominant in Bellator. And I think the general MMA community, they may completely underrate the skills that Patricio Pitbull has. He's not his brother, Patricio. Patricio is, he kind of is like a Terrence McKinney. Patricio Pitbull is legitimate championship caliber, and he has excellent hands. He has underrated wrestling, very, very good submission skill set. And some of my best submissions I kind of mimicked off of Patricio Pitbull. So I developed my arm in guillotine because of how well I saw it working for Patricio Pitbull. So Patricio Pitbull's guillotine is one of the best in the business. And clearly we've seen Yair Rodriguez get, ragdolled from time to time, get completely taken advantage of on the mat, going all the way back to Frankie Edgar, to the recent Brian Ortega. I mean, it's a hole that he's tried patching with absolute super glue, and he's struggled to do so. So in a fight like that, it's tough to see. It's tough to see where I stand because I hold Patricio Pitbull in such championship regard. I was completely unaware, or maybe I forgot, that outside of Bellator in Ryzen, Patricio Pitbull had an experimental fight, just kind of like a one-off, and he ended up getting finished by a complete kickboxer in MMA. So it's really weird. And I obviously don't love seeing that, him coming into the UFC, getting thrown to the wolves, if you will, of a ranked, title contender, if you will, of Yair Rodriguez. It's a tough debut, tough UFC debut, but let's be real, it's tough on both sides. It's a tough fight for Yair Rodriguez as well.
Samuel, appreciate your super chat. I always love the support that you show us here at Fight HQ. Of course, if you do have any questions, you can line those up in chat. We'll get to those throughout the show. Of course, also, you can join our Discord channel. Totally free to join. No price point with that one. Also, we do have our DraftKings contest that you can get in. Link to that contest is in the description below, whether you're watching us on YouTube or maybe after the fact you're listening to us on the podcasting platforms. As always, we appreciate everyone who tunes in each and every week to Fight HQ. Pete, let's get right into breaking this one down. The main event is for what will be the vacant featherweight title once this fight does start here on Saturday night. Alexander Volkanovski taking on Diego Lopes. Diego, a slight betting underdog here on a Thursday evening to this point, plus 125. The money does seem to be coming in on Alexander Volkanovski. He's now up to a minus 150 betting favorite. He's going to be $8,200 on DK, $19 on FanDuel. Diego Lopes, $8,000 on DK, $15 on FanDuel. First time we've seen Volkanovski since February of last year. Of course, that loss there against Ilia Topuria, and this is his 10th straight title fight here in the UFC. Of course, Diego Lopes, we all remember, coming in the UFC on short notice, puts up a hell of a fight against Evloev, loses the decision, now has gone to win on 5 in a row. And, Pete, when I think about the story of this fight, to me, the story of this fight, it's not about Volkanovski. It is about the rise of Diego Lopes. And it just shows in the UFC, if you have an exciting fighting style, you can fast track yourself to a title matchup as opposed to, Movsar Evloev, who's sitting on the sidelines.
Yeah, I mean, you see these guys break into the UFC and fight for a title with, relative ease because of their meteoric rise, because of their fighting style, being a finisher, going out there, taking short notice opportunities, being a company man and answering that call and going out there and performing as well. That's why Conor McGregor had such a meteoric rise as well throughout the UFC and becoming an absolute superstar. It's hard to compare anybody to Conor McGregor, but he's one where he definitely had catered matchups because of his specific skill set until he couldn't avoid Khabib Nurmagomedov, and then you had the polar opposite in that matchup, and then you saw what really happened, right? It's a good thing that matchup happened when it did and not early on in Conor McGregor's career, because you don't necessarily know if he would have became the same superstar that he is today. In this matchup against, Volkanovski and Diego Lopes, you have Diego Lopes 6 years younger, 6 inches in the height plus reach department. So he's definitely the longer and bigger guy in this weight class. But Volkanovski built a career off of leg kicking, moving, being mobile against Max Holloway, winning some arguable, questionable decisions, but very competitive and avoided the dangerous Max Holloway. He put together, fantastic performances inside the UFC time and time again. His output is second to none. His well-rounded skill set. He has good hands, good low kicks, very good wrestling, very good submission defense. I mean, I'm not sure that you can submit this guy, and if you do, you definitely have to put him to sleep because he's not going to quit. But in that Brian Ortega fight, you saw Volkanovski display tremendous heart And since then, we saw him take an opportunity, a short notice opportunity against Islam Makhachev, had his backpacked for large majority of it, but turned it into an absolute fight. And some people think that he could have won that fight against Islam Makhachev. In the rematch, kind of got caught being a little lazy with his defense and got head kicked and got knocked out. And then looking to get back in the cage and right or wrong and get back into a win column a little too soon after suffering a knockout to then get knocked out against one of the best mixed martial artists on the planet in Ilia Topuria. So, in hindsight, it was a poor decision to go against Ilia Topuria so soon after such a devastating KO. But I do like what he's done now, where he's taken the time to heal, whether it's been his decision or it's been the team's decision. It's the correct one. And now he's up against, one of the most dangerous guys within the division in Diego Lopes, who's a fantastic jiu-jitsu practitioner. But oddly enough, he's been getting his work done with his hands. Explosive boxing, very, very good hands, and is a true finisher. There are some question marks about Diego Lopes, right? Because I don't think that he can match the strikes and takedowns attempted that Volkanovski can display over 25 minutes. The work rate for Volkanovski, strikes plus takedowns attempted for Volkanovski sits at 15.8, and Diego Lopes is at 9.1. The strikes attempted for Volkanovski will be at 11, and Diego Lopes will be at 7.9. The takedowns attempted, Diego Lopes, despite being a fantastic jiu-jitsu practitioner, not really going out there and attempting too many takedowns, about 1.25 per 15 minutes, whereas you have Volkanovski at 4.8 per 15 minutes. So I definitely think that Volkanovski, can put together a complete mixed martial arts performance here. The problem in the question is about, is his chin. Is his chin completely shot? He's leaner now than he's ever been before, so he says. He's super focused. I do like the fact that he allowed his brain to heal from the recent knockout defeats. And we do have Diego Lopes, who I think has the greatest chance inside of round 1 and round 2 to pull this thing off. And as this gets stretched out, I do think that it clearly favors Volkanovski. And we see Diego Lopes not necessarily quit in the past, but outside the UFC, when he's been pushed and tested, he's wilted under the pressure a little bit. And whether it was due to injury or it was due to will, it did seem a little bit breakable outside of that 10-minute window. And I also don't love the fact that Dan Ige on a day or two's, 1 day notice or an hour's, whatever the hell it was, a day 2 notice, hops in against Diego Lopes and doesn't get finished and actually wins the 3rd round. So, a lot of intangibles within that situation where Diego Lopes was forced to cut weight multiple times or was going to fight lower than fight higher. Just absolute stress on the body and mind that was unnecessary. But obviously, in this matchup, we need to have one guy. I'm thinking it's going to go 25 minutes or close to. And as the fight gets extended, I do favor Volkanovski to get it done. But one shot can change it all, and Diego Lopes can knock out, Volkanovski. He could sink in a guillotine choke or a Darce choke and get it done pretty quickly as well. So I'm torn, man. I'm kind of talking in circles over here, but I think I'm going to lean with Volkanovski over 25 minutes. But I think I would be betting, if I'm betting Diego Lopes, it would be in round 1 or 2, because obviously that's his best chance in my opinion.
Yeah, it's one of those matchups where there's just part of me that just, from a betting perspective, I don't think I'm going to have a play on this. Maybe live bet it at some point in this one, but I'm kind of with you. My biggest concern about Diego Lopes is if he doesn't get that knockout or that finish within 10 to 12 minutes, because I do think about that Dan Ige fight, the fact that Dan Ige started to have a lot of success there in the 3rd round. That's just kind of my concern a little bit. It's a really tough fight to avoid when we're talking about GPPs just because of the price point. I would be relatively surprised if the winner of this matchup is not optimal when you're talking about what the price point is here. I do slightly lean Alexander Volkanovski, and I will tell you, when I was looking at ownership projections, I was actually surprised that Diego Lopes maybe wasn't higher than Alexander Volkanovski in this matchup. But, one of the things that, and we always say this, is we never know when the downside of a fighter's career is coming. Maybe we're seeing that with Volk right now. When you look at what happened with the Islam matchups and now with Topuria, it just kind of does make you wonder what we're going to see here. And one of the things to mention here, Cody brings this up in the chat, is this Diego's first 5 rounder? This is his first 5 rounder in the UFC.
It's a great question. I do believe it's his first 5 rounder. I'll have to look on Tapology real quick about outside the UFC. But I remember there was one fight that I watched of Diego Lopes, and I did not like what I saw once the tide started to be turned. And, it kind of was reminiscent to Brian Ortega against Alexander Volkanovski. And, we've seen Volkanovski just completely destroy people over 25 minutes. Look what he did to Yair Rodriguez. And I think he could really cook Diego Lopes as the fight gets extended. But, yeah, I'm interested. This is his Diego Lopes' first 5-round fight in the UFC. And outside the UFC, he did go to 5 rounds once, and that was against Nate Richardson back in 2021 for Fury FC.
I want to bring up a stat that I talked about earlier today when I was doing the MMA Report podcast, and it is about fighters who are above the age of 35 years old in a title fight from flyweight to welterweight. 2 wins, 31 losses. The only 2 wins were by the same fighter, Tyron Woodley.
Oh, shit. No way. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a young man's game, right? Especially for the lighter weight classes. That's why your boy ain't being light anymore. That's why I'm 170 and up. Because, it just is what it is, right? Like, as you get older, you should be growing and getting bigger. Shit, I'm going to be a heavyweight one day. Who knows? And you already know heavyweight's the worst division in the world. So I definitely think that I could make it pretty far in the heavyweight division. But yeah, I mean, Diego Lopes, he had 2 5-round bouts. That was back in 2019 against Alejandro Solano Rodriguez, who's 29-16. It went the distance and he won a decision. So that's 6 years ago. And then there was another one against Nate Richardson in 2021 in Fury FC. So Nate Richardson's 12-5 overall, and that was Fury FC. The other one was in Lux. Regardless, he didn't go 25 minutes with UFC competition. So, I mean, it's a completely different game.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you tell me this fight is over within 10 minutes, I think we're talking Bruce Buffer announcing that Diego Lopes is your new UFC featherweight champion. But if you tell me this thing is, especially you tell me this thing goes 25 minutes, I favor all the hell in the world. Like, if you tell me Diego Lopes gets off to a hot start in this one, and let's just say he takes rounds 1 and 2, before round 3 starts, I'm pulling my phone up, I'm going on that sportsbook app, and I'm live betting Volkanovski.
Yeah, might as well, right? I mean, I don't want to think there's all these narratives from time to time and from fight to fight, and it's like, the narrative going around is that Diego Lopes' cardio is horrible and that he can't make adjustments, and that even though he's younger, he can't go 25 minutes and Volk can. I mean, that's true from what we've seen because that's what the data says right now. But he could make adjustments and go out there. He's young and be the best version of himself and make us all look foolish because he added a new strength and conditioning routine, or he started swimming, or he laid off beer. You know what I mean? Like silly things like that. So it's like it's hard to bet against Volkanovski. So I will be picking Volkanovski ever so slightly. But it's one where I probably just don't even want to have either because it's a real 50-50 fight for me.
Yeah, if you tell me you're doing a single bullet in the big GPPs, I would put together a lineup that doesn't have the main event, co-main event, because that is going to be a way for you to get different in terms of that. Now, speaking of that co-main event, it is a lightweight matchup that is scheduled for 5 rounds. You got Michael Chandler taking on Paddy Pimblett. Paddy Pimblett, a minus 155 betting favorite, plus 130 for Chandler, who is $7,800 on DK, $13 on FanDuel. Paddy, $8,400 on DK, and $17 on FanDuel. And Pete, this is your classic UFC matchmaking where you've got the vet, the guy that's been around top of this division for a little bit now, taking on that up-and-coming fighter in Paddy Pimblett. First time Paddy fights a scheduled 5-round fight in the UFC. And, one of my biggest notes about this when we talk about Paddy, and, we can talk about maybe the cardio concerns that we have for Paddy Pimblett, is the fact of this is a big step up in competition for him.
Yeah, it is a big step up in competition for Paddy Pimblett, and Paddy Pimblett is an exceptional fighter. I love his grappling. I really do love his grappling. His striking offensively is solid. I think that his hands, they land pretty decently. I think that his kick and his leg dexterity is pretty impressive. I mean, he calf kicks well. He head kicks well. He doesn't shy away from being offensive with his lower body. And I do think that his striking is improving. But with all this work that you put in and all this time training as a professional athlete, I mean, it's pretty silly to not have your chin down. And it bothers me. It bothers me so much because I'm a very, very technical striker. I train everybody, a part of our gym, to be technical. Keeping your chin down is a must. And there's so many drills to fix it. I mean, you could literally just make Paddy Pimblett have a tennis ball underneath his chin for camp after camp after camp, so he doesn't pull his head out and keep his chin up in the air in the middle of a combination or in the middle of a flurry, because one of these days he's going to get cracked on the chin and he's going to get knocked out. And I know he says Scousers don't get knocked out, but everybody has an off switch, and a guy that hits as hard as Michael Chandler could be that guy. And there's always been specific matchups there where we've been like, all right, I may not believe in this guy as much as, as much as the community does. I think that he's somewhat of a hype machine. So I'm going to wait for the perfect matchup. And I was surprised to see Paddy Pimblett being a slight favorite over Michael Chandler. Truthfully, I thought that Michael Chandler would probably be a slight favorite over Paddy Pimblett. And I think that would be largely due to the respect of his entire career, what he's accomplished in Bellator, what he's done in the UFC, how close some fights have been, or how several moments in fights have been for Michael Chandler, and how dangerous he is. So I was surprised to see him as an underdog. And I went back and I looked, and even breaking into the UFC against Dan Hooker, Chandler was an underdog. In his follow-up fight against Charles Oliveira was a pick'em. He was still an underdog, plus 110 underdog. Against Justin Gaethje, plus 175 underdog. The first and final time he was ever a favorite in the UFC, he was a minus 370 favorite over Tony Ferguson. I mean, take that for what it is. He should have been probably more than that. Dustin Poirier, plus 185 underdog against him, plus 210 underdog against Charles Oliveira, and now we have him at plus 135 against Paddy Pimblett. So the bookmakers know that Michael Chandler doesn't have the greatest fight IQ. I mean, he goes out there and he just swings leather. He wears a ton of damage on his face as well, but he's in phenomenal shape. His wrestling is great, but he doesn't go to as much as I think I would like him to. He has poor submission defense, in my honest opinion. I'm absolutely mesmerized that Charles Oliveira was not, that he was unable to finish in rear naked choke against Michael Chandler because he had his back for extended periods of time. We've seen Dustin Poirier finish Michael Chandler from that position. And I do think that if Paddy Pimblett gets in an advantageous position, he's going to submit Michael Chandler. No ifs, ands, or buts. I really do. I think that the way that he strings together submissions is pretty impressive. He'll go from one to the other, or he'll even do a combo where he had Bobby Green in a triangle while cranking on the arm as well. So, I think that if it hits the mat, Chandler needs to be in top position. Can't have his back taken. Definitely don't want to be underneath Paddy Pimblett either, because I don't trust in Chandler's submission defense. But with all that being said, I'm not really convinced that Paddy Pimblett has exceptional wrestling to get this to the floor time and time again. He has very tricky throws. He goes for a haragoshi several times. He'll go for an uchimata. But, for the most part, he'll accept you taking him down and he'll throw a triangle or a flying triangle. As long as this is on the feet, man, it's really hard for me not to see Chandler crash the pocket explosively with his blitzes, hitting Paddy Pimblett with a big, combination and hurting and dropping him. And then it's up to him to make the correct decisions. But the 5-round nature could test the questionable gas tank of Paddy Pimblett. And for that reason, I'm going to side with Michael Chandler. I mean, I'm so torn on the main event and co-main event. Oddly enough, I think I would like to see Paddy Pimblett win. and I like I like the path that he could take to go and fight for a belt. Whereas Chandler, I don't really know where the up is from here. So I'll go with Michael Chandler landing a combination. I think the feints, the fakes, the hands up, everything on the feet favors Michael Chandler. And I'm not convinced that Paddy Pimblett's not going to get knocked out. So give me Chandler slightly.
I think when you talk about finding the best possible matchup in the top 10 for Paddy Pimblett, I don't know if there's a better option out there than Michael Chandler. One of the things I do believe is I think Chandler's going to try to put a pace on Paddy Pimblett and force him to fight a high pace fight, thinking about, okay, what does we have seen Paddy wear down as the fight has gone on. That's why, to me, the fact that this is scheduled for 5 rounds, if this gets to the 4th round, if it gets to the 5th round, what does a Paddy Pimblett look there? And, right as you were, breaking down the fight from the analysis of this matchup, and we've talked about this for a long time, the way Paddy carries his chin, if he truly thinks he can't be knocked out, boy, MMA gods have a way of humbling you.
Yeah.
I mean, and that to me is, if you're Paddy Pimblett, and you would imagine that the focus each and every day in training is about getting that chin down, because
it's not going to happen.
But how crazy would it be, though, if Paddy Pimblett could submit Michael Chandler and Charles Oliveira, who literally had his back for 20 minutes? Couldn't do it.
I think it can happen. I really do. And I think that the way that Paddy grapples, I would love to just see him compete in grappling tournaments too, because I really, really think that this kid's grappling's nasty. I mean, I watched him go live with like 10 or 15 Marines or, whoever I saw that train in jiu-jitsu, and it's just like one after another. And, and then I watch him in his training camp footages as well. And it's just like, that's where he can be championship caliber. It is from his submission chain and from his submission grappling. But I mean, everybody thinking that Paddy Pimblett's going to come out here and fix his chin issue, I almost think you can't. I almost think he's too far gone. I really do. I think he's too far gone, and clearly there's been people in his ear, and he can't break the bad habit. So it is what it is, and nobody's been able to capitalize yet. Doesn't mean that Chandler can't. Chandler was on ice waiting for that Conor McGregor fight that never materialized, and I feel for him. I would love to see what the line, if anybody remembers, what the line was supposed to be for Chandler versus Conor McGregor, because I would have loved to see what that is in comparison to Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett, because I'm a big Conor McGregor guy, and his counter-striking's fantastic. But the way that Michael Chandler throws with reckless abandon, and he has that wrestling in his back pocket, he's a dangerous, dangerous matchup for everybody. And if they had Chandler as a big dog to McGregor, it was very enticing, and I probably would have grabbed it. But yeah, man, I've seen Chandler fight just like I've seen Patricio all throughout my career. What he's done in Bellator, it's kind of sad that he's has no success in the UFC thus far outside of Dan Hooker and Tony Ferguson. But yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. I would love to hear from us. I would love to hear from our community what you guys think for the main event, co-main event. But yeah, for me, it'll be Michael Chandler. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Yeah, I like Chandler in this position just because of I just think the pace that he's going to be able to put on here. But definitely would not be surprised if Paddy Pimblett goes out there. And I think for me, the one thing I want to see from Paddy is sticking to a nutrition plan.
Yeah, I mean, he's young, man. Diego Lopes is out here eating pizza too.
Well, look, I've seen some lightweights that can walk around at 190, 200 pounds and not look like that.
Yeah. I agree, but my man's a foodie. I don't know.
Look, he is, I love to enjoy food too, but I'm not a professional fighter.
I have a buddy of mine who reminds me of Paddy Pimblett of how he would blow up in between fights,
I feel like that ultimately is going to catch up to him at some point.
He's too young. He'll be all right now. I ain't worried. But it's funny because you have a guy who's disciplined only in fight camps, and then you have a guy in Michael Chandler who seems like he's disciplined 365 days a year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like he doesn't miss a strength and conditioning exercise or workout. And it's like the guy looks like he's on stuff, but he ain't because he's just in that great of shape.
Yeah, obviously there's always been people making that suggestion for years when it comes to Michael Chandler in that. Let's move over to our next matchup. It is in the featherweight division. You got Yair Rodriguez taking on the former Bellator featherweight and lightweight champion Patricio Pitbull. Patricio a plus 160 betting underdog, minus 190 for Yair, who is A700 on DK, $17 on FanDuel. Patricio 7,500 DK and $11 on FanDuel. When you talk about Yair Rodriguez, in this matchup, to me, it talking about the size difference that we're going to see, the height and the reach that Yair is going to be. But this is a matchup that Patricio Pitbull is very familiar with.
Yeah, but, I think it's a different matchup, though, because Yair Rodriguez is such a kick-oriented fighter. I mean, Yair Rodriguez is 5 years younger and has an advantage in the height and reach department where he has 10.5 inches in the height plus reach department. That's a lot, Jason. That's a real significant amount for the weight class for 145 pounds. I mean, you got a guy on Yair Rodriguez training with Bilal Muhammad all the time, Ignacio Bahamondes all the time. Those guys are part of my friend's gym, Mike Valley Flow's fighting systems over there, VFS in Chicago. I mean, Valley Flow fighting is just like, They've put together a great team, and the team actually has exceptional kickers a part of it, and Yair Rodriguez is one of them. I'm very, very concerned for Patricio Pitbull after watching that Ryzen fight, which I had no idea even occurred, or I forgot or blocked it out of my memory, man. So it's like, man, I love Patricio Pitbull. You saw what he did in the PFL as well for one short fight, but I don't know if I love this matchup for him against Yair Rodriguez. I mean, Patricio Pitbull fighting Jeremy Kennedy is not the same guy. Fighting Chihiro Suzuki, who's 10-3 in MMA, mainly a kickboxer, went out there and blitzed Patricio Pitbull and knocked him out. And when I watched that fight, I looked at that and I go, the guy kind of reminds me of Yair Rodriguez with the aggressiveness, with the hands. Never mind the kicks. I mean, you got Yair Rodriguez throwing spin kicks, hook kicks, spinning hook kicks, spinning back kicks to the body, and he can hit you from a mile away. He can actually hit you from, being mobile when Patricio Pitbull can't reach him at all. And that's my fear, is that Patricio is going to be stuck on the outside, get kicked, get lit up. But I mean, man, if you told me 4 years ago Yair and Pitbull were fighting, I'd be picking Pitbull all day because his hands have crazy power. The combinations are great. He's a very, very smart and cerebral fighter, and his submission game is exceptional. I mean, if Yair Rodriguez goes in there and shoots a damn takedown, which I know everybody's going to laugh at, but he's been working so much on his wrestling that I almost think that he could actually fall victim to an opportunistic submission. You're going to see Patricio Pitbull submit him with an arm-in triangle, arm-in guillotine. So I'm a little worried about just Yair Rodriguez because I just remember the Korean Zombie beating the shit out of him for 24 minutes and 48 seconds, and then all of a sudden Yair Rodriguez lands a crazy elbow, come from behind victory. Frankie Edgar ragdoll Yair Rodriguez. Volkanovski did. Brian Ortega did, so it's just like, man, you don't know what you're getting, but I do think that Patricio will be, he will welcome a striking matchup, and I think that plays right into Yair Rodriguez's game. So it pains me to say, but I think I'm gonna say that Yair Rodriguez knocks out Patricio Pitbull inside the first 2 rounds, and the 10.5 inches in the height plus reach department is a little too much for him. So give me Yair Rodriguez to spoil the debut for Patricio.
I feel like my thought process may be a little bit different if that was 5 years ago. I just don't know what to expect with Patricio at this point in his career, but I'll say this. This matchup tells me, A, the UFC's paying him a ton of money, And B, if he wins this matchup, don't be shocked. He's fighting for the UFC featherweight title in his next matchup. To me, it's about how does he get on the inside. And one of the things you have to remember is who's one of his coaches? Captain Eric.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have to imagine the thought process has to be, we got to try to get this matchup to the ground. That's a clear weakness of Yair Rodriguez. So we'll see what happens. As to me, the pick is Yair Rodriguez. I think it's a decision. I don't think he gets a stoppage victory in terms of that one. Then we got a matchup once again in the 145-pound division. You got Mitchell taking on Silva. Silva, of course, out of that Fighting Nerds team. And, of course, that's a team that we love to support here on Fight HQ just because
sure do.
Of what they do inside the UFC octagon. It's hard to, when you look at the results, this is a team that just doesn't lose inside the UFC octagon. Silva, a minus 235 betting favorite. Bryce, a plus 190 betting underdog. He's 7,100 DK, $9 on FanDuel. Silva, 9,100 DK. And $20 over on FanDuel. Pete, this is classic MMA matchmaking. You got the grappler and Bryce Mitchell, and you got Silva on the other side as the striker. One of the notes that I wrote about this is, the analysis of this fight has to be about fight film, not the emotions, particularly, of course, with Bryce Mitchell. But to me, one of the things that really does stick out to me is the step up in competition here. And if you tell me Charles Jourdain could take down Silva 3 times out of 7 attempts, what could Bryce Mitchell do?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very compelling matchup, right? I mean, you have Bryce Mitchell saying some completely outlandish things to the media, and the UFC clearly not being, happy with those comments, as, they shouldn't be, and then giving Bryce Mitchell a very difficult punishment and having to fight Gene Silva. And Gene Silva basically saying, I'll be your hitman. So I think that Gene Silva is a phenomenal fighter and one that has really risen up the rankings and has knocked out a ton of people that I don't know. I just thought he was going to out-volume people. But, man, credit to Kevin Vallejos for how damn tough he was, because he almost made me question Gene Silva's finishing ability. But it's just a credit to Kevin Vallejos. I mean, he knocked out Weston Wilson in round 1. Knocked out Charles Jourdain, finished Drew Dober because of a doctor stoppage because he brutalized his face, and then he knocked out Melsik Baghdasaryan. So this guy's an absolute finisher, and him not knocking out Kevin Vallejos isn't a knock. It's just a credit to Kevin. And man, Gene Silva, absolute animal, but he's really never fought this type of opponent in Bryce Mitchell. And Bryce Mitchell's an absolute moron for multiple reasons. But the one thing that you have to say is that Bryce Mitchell is so damn talented when it comes to wrestling and grappling. He can really dominate people in a Khabib Nurmagomedov type of way. The way that he relentlessly shoots takedowns, the way that he pins and controls people, mat returns them, the way that he chases the back. The guy has just an exceptional repertoire on the mat, where he can go, he has a deep bag. He can pull out submissions. He can start to ground and pound you. He makes you make decisions, and then he punishes you for making those decisions on the mat. So Bryce Mitchell is a smothering type of grappler, and if you haven't prepped or prepared for a wrestler, good luck. Good luck fighting Bryce Mitchell. You know what I mean? Because if he takes you down once, he builds that confidence, and he's just going to keep going to the well over and over and over. And me seeing the fight of Charles Jourdain versus Gene Silva, and Jourdain landing takedowns, ones where I see Bryce Mitchell taking him down and dominating him. He tree-topped him. I mean, he took him. He would have had his back. He would have had him on the mat multiple times. And credit to Gene Silva, he got back up, and then he ended up knocking him out from a single leg attempt. He limp-legged his leg out of there and uppercutted the shit out of Charles Jourdain. I think this is how this fight's going to go, right? Bryce Mitchell has some sneaky head movement to him. His striking isn't great. It's pretty average. But he knows what he has to do to avoid a big shot, to get in on your hips, and to grab your legs and try to take you down. And I almost honestly think this is how this is going to look. Bryce Mitchell's an exceptional value this week. Big, wide lines. And I actually think that his skill set can get this done. And he's winning this fight until the moment he's not. And I know that sounds corny, but I really think that he is ragdolling Gene Silva or making Gene Silva defend takedown after takedown. And then in one of these moments, Gene Silva gets back to his feet and he lands that shot. And in similar fashion to how Josh Emmett knocked out Bryce Mitchell, I think that Gene Silva has that same type of power. And I think that he's going to crack Bryce Mitchell. And it may not be one shot, it may be multiple shots, but I think it'll be the beginning of the end. And we'll see Gene Silva get Bryce Mitchell out of there before the end of the final bell. But I think it's not going to be easy. And I think it's one where people are going to be starting to smash or pissed off at themselves for not playing Bryce Mitchell. I think if I had to pick one guy, it's clearly going to be the Fighting Nerds fighter. And I think it's because when he was taken down by Charles Jourdain, who's predominantly a striker with a guillotine, you weren't anticipating getting taken down or getting out wrestled. So it kind of caught you off guard and you were unprepared. You know what you're preparing for in Bryce Mitchell. So if you're not working on your wrestling or your grappling when you're paired up against them, you're a fool. So I can't think that the Fighting Nerds team isn't prepared for a Bryce Mitchell matchup. And even if they're prepared, they may still be unable to stop it. But I think that every round starts on the feet, and Gene Silva will find his mark. And I think that he will be the next guy to knock out Bryce Mitchell. And I think it'll be a highlight. So give me Gene Silva, but I completely understand why people would want to play Bryce Mitchell. I just think he has to be truly perfect for 15 minutes to not get finished.
One of my questions about Silva in this matchup is him sticking to the game plan that the Fighting Nerds put in there. Does he deviate from that game plan? I mean, I when you're talking about punt plays and takedown city, Bryce Mitchell is that guy this week of what he could potentially do there. And I know that, for a majority of the people, whether they're sitting in the Kaseya Center down in Miami on Saturday, they're sitting in front of their television set at home, they're at their buddy's house watching the fights, or they're out at a sports bar watching it, a majority of people are going to be rooting for Bryce Mitchell to get knocked the F out. I mean, we all know that's what it is. But, man, there is a clear path to victory here, and call me crazy. I don't bet against the Fighting Nerds team. I don't.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to bet on Bryce Mitchell. No,
Bryce Mitchell's a pick. I
think
he's going to take Silva down. I think he's going to submit him.
Interesting. I love it. I love the boldness. And I think all week I've been looking at those salaries, and I'm like, man, I can really see it.
To me, the line does not reflect the abilities and the skill in this match. I mean, look, I very well may look like a damn idiot come Saturday, and Silva goes out there and just brutally KOs him in 2 minutes. I could look like an idiot, but I see the path there. I see the path of Bryce Mitchell taking him down and dominating him. If he doesn't, and I'll say this right now, I will have a bet on Bryce Mitchell to win via sub at plus 600. I'll have a bet on Bryce Mitchell to win via decision at plus 450.
I think both of those numbers are ridiculous. I think both of those numbers are ridiculous. That's crazy. I'd put a quarter unit on both of those. Honestly, I really would.
When I saw that, I will tell you this, there is some prop bets I've seen this week. Those were the two big prop bets, and there's 1, 2, 3. Another one, a fight we already talked about. Chandler Pimblett, over 3.5 rounds, plus 190.
Yeah, dude.
I like it. I like the number.
I'll tell you what, usually I'm the bold one between us two. And me going out on a limb and being super bold. I like it when Jason's bold. I like that. That's cool. I could totally see it, man. And as you say, the odds don't reflect the skills or the paths to victory. And clearly hype and recency bias are a lot to do with the lines. And I'm very, very intrigued. The other X factor and intangible that we haven't been talking about is Bryce Mitchell's, belief in God and all that stuff. And he's truly believing that Gene Silva's possessed by demons.
But you know what?
That might work for you.
You know what? Every athlete needs something that motivates them. Maybe this is what Bryce Mitchell needed. Maybe he needed to have this belief that you're a non-believer. You're sending demons into my dream, and I'm coming to crush your dreams.
Bro, he said he's been having dreams that haunt him at night of these witches. What'd he say? These demons are in my that Gene Silva is possessed by demons, and he's sending witches and all these other women to try to make him think of cheating on his wife and all that to his dream. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Are we talking about a fight or are we talking about a movie script? But I don't know, man. I believe you. You have the quote? I need to hear it.
Quote, every single night since the day of before the press conference, I've had demonic dreams.
See, dude.
Legions of demons are attacking me every single time I sleep, and not one time have I been able to have any peaceful sleep since that day. These demons surround me, and they try to fight me and provoke me to anger, and then the dream will switch, and they send beautiful women.
See, bro, I told you I wasn't making this shit up.
And they're trying to get me to lust, to cheat on my wife. Satan using two of my weaknesses to try and expose the evil in my heart, which is anger and lust. I'm not fighting a man on April 12th. I'm fighting a man possessed by a legion of demons. When I simply said the name Jesus, he was provoked to maliciousness, and he started barking like a dog, chanting, F you, F you, F you.
And then he looked at Gene Silva. He goes, "You're barking up the wrong dream, motherfucker."
Dude, I've seen some crazy ass shit in this sport. Like, and I always say this. We should never be surprised what happens in and outside of competition in this sport.
No.
That's a new one.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen this before, bro. This is straight out of a movie. This is funny. This is hilarious. And honestly, it's kind of crazy because, I mean, yeah, Cody, I believe you, bro. I mean, Bryce Mitchell's fighting his own demons, as he said earlier. He's completely right. And Josh Emmett did, irreversible damage to him. So Gene Silva's already kind of piggybacked on that and says, listen, you think you got brain damage from that? What I'm going to do to you is going to be even worse. And I think he could be right. And honestly, like from a serious and health perspective, I hope Mitchell's all right. But it could be something that's motivating him in a situation like this. But it's a very, very compelling fight.
And what does become interesting, and I talk about this when you're developing your lineups, is looking at those 9,000 fighters and looking at the fighter who has the least amount of ownership. And that is Silva, as we currently sit here on a Thursday evening. And so to me, that is something to pay attention to. I'll also tell you this. We'll talk about this later on. Another way to get different from the field, Sumudaerji. I'm just saying. If you're looking to get a little different from the field, that's something we'll talk about later on in the show. Let's get over to our next matchup. It is in the 205-pound division. Nikita Krylov taking on Dom Reyes. Dom Reyes, a plus 150 betting underdog, minus 180 for Krylov, who's 8,800 on DK, $18 on FanDuel. Reyes, 7,400 DK, and $12 on FanDuel. This is the first time we're going to see Nikita Krylov since March 11, 2023, which was a win against Ryan Spann. He's won 3 in a row. And, if you go back 18 months ago, there was a lot of uncertainty about Dom Reyes of what is this fighter at this point in his career. But now in 2024, he's rolled off back-to-back wins, a first-round victory against Justin Jacoby, a second-round win against Anthony Smith. And to me, I don't understand this salary on this fight. I'm blown away by the salary, and I'm liking Dom Reyes this week.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting fight, right? Because, from a skill set standpoint, Nikita Krylov can definitely do more than Dom Reyes. Nikita Krylov can strike. He has very good kicks. He can wrestle. His jiu-jitsu is exceptional. Dom Reyes is pretty basic. I mean, Dom Reyes just likes to throw hands, and you throw kicks too, but he likes to strike. And he's an anti-wrestler, right? He keeps the fight on the feet, doesn't really look to land takedowns. If any, he can. He's a very talented wrestler. But whereas Nikita Krylov will attempt 6 per 15 minutes, you have Dom Reyes attempting 1. And in the striking standpoint, you have Nikita Krylov attempting 7.9 strikes per 15 minutes, and Dom Reyes attempting 10.4. So, you have Dom Reyes as the more active fighter, the guy going out there and putting together the bigger moments. And I definitely don't think that he's going to be getting taken down by Nikita Krylov, where Nikita Krylov is typically a very, very talented wrestler or talented grappler. He struggles in the takedown accuracy and efficiency standpoint. His takedown accuracy sits at 38%, which is pretty damn poor, against Dom Reyes' 82% takedown defense. So I have Nikita Krylov getting 1 takedown with all those attempts over 15 minutes. And that's just not going to do it, because I don't think he's the better striker in this situation. So Dom Reyes, his chin was a big question mark at one time. I'm very happy for him. I'm happy to see him back on the winning ways, on a streak himself, been the more active guy, been the guy in the cage as of late. So yeah, I think the line's a little wide, because I just don't see Nikita Krylov's typical path to victory being there for him. I think it's going to be nullified by Dom Reyes' takedown defense. So it's a very confusing one, and one where Krylov is the more busy guy typically, but you have Krylov, at 13 strikes plus takedowns attempted per 15 minutes. That's just not going to do it for me. So give me Dom Reyes. I think that the advantage on the feet, 10.4 strikes attempted per 15 minutes, whereas Krylov 7.9 is going to be enough, and we don't see Dom Reyes get completely out-wrestled. So, yeah, it's going to be a Dom Reyes play for me. I was a little concerned about I was a little surprised by the salaries as well. So I'll be siding with Dom Reyes.
Yeah, I think Dom Reyes is going to be a core play for me this week, and it's going to allow me to get to a lot of things that I won't get to this week here. I mean, look, I think that this should probably be more in the 83-79 range than 8,800-7,400. That's the way I view this fight. And, what has Nikita Krylov been doing the last 2 years? We'll see what happens there. Next up, we got Dan Ige taking on Sean Woodson. Woodson is a minus 180 betting favorite, plus 150 for Dan Ige, who's 7,700 DK, $14 on FanDuel. Woodson, 8,500 on DK, and $15 on FanDuel. Of course, you got Sean Woodson. It's, to me, always amazing that this guy can make 146 pounds when you look at the frame that he does have. He's going to have a massive reach advantage in this one, which is something to talk about here. But to me, when I think about this matchup, Pete, it comes down to the power that Dan Ige does have versus the volume of Sean Woodson.
Yeah, I mean, Sean Woodson's a freak for the division. I mean, he has 1 year on Dan Ige, but in the height plus reach department, he has 14 inches on Dan Ige. That's absolutely unheard of. I mean, the way that he can hit Dan Ige with straight shots is crazy. But Sean Woodson's a guy that's, always been somebody I thought would start to move up in weight. Somehow he's still making the limit. It doesn't make much sense to me, which probably goes to show you that he's cutting a tremendous amount of weight. And that chin of his is something that was shown to have some holes in it. And, I keep going back to that one fight where he kept getting knocked down. And it was against Luis Saldana, where I just could not believe it. Like, Saldana knocked him down twice. Sean Woodson was out on his feet. It was crazy. Saldana follows up with a follow-up knee and gets almost disqualified. And it becomes a split draw. Is that what that was? Because of the point deduction.
Yeah.
So it was just a very odd situation. But then you had Sean Woodson come up and rattle off wins over Dennis Bazookia, split decision over Charles Jourdain, which definitely aged well, Alex Caceres, and then most recently picked up a finish over Fernando Padilla, who had a very similar frame as him. And I was worried that Sean Woodson was just going to crumble over a guy that is kind of a mirror match. on the outside, Woodson should be able to pick apart Dan Ige, but sometimes what he does is he closes the space for his opponents, whether he means to or not. He starts to advance and step into their range to land the combinations. And this is a guy in Dan Ige who can really capitalize with a counter shot. I mean, the way that Dan Ige has power is crazy. Like, Dan Ige hits people and he drops people and he knocks them out. And he has just such like power that you sleep on. You don't necessarily see it because he's a compact guy. But a guy that just fought Lerone Murphy, Diego Lopes, Andre Fili, Bryce Mitchell, and now you give him Sean Woodson. I think it's a tremendous step down in competition for Dan Ige, truthfully. So I think that he needs to clearly get inside. I also think that Dan Ige can wrestle in a situation here. Granted, the takedown defense of Sean Woodson has been solid, been 84%, but I definitely don't think that he's fought a grappler of Dan Ige's caliber. But Dan Ige may just be able to attempt a takedown to clinch with him, to then dirty box with him. So I think that Dan Ige finds a shot over the top or in between a combination of Sean Woodson, because if he doesn't land a knockout shot, I think it's a long 15 minutes. I really think like finish-only markets for Dan Ige make a ton of sense. I don't see Sean Woodson finishing him. I think Dan Ige has the power and even has the submission skill set to finish Sean Woodson, because we've seen his submission defense is kind of weak. But Dan Ige needs to get on the inside and land that big shot, because at the end of Sean Woodson's punches, 14 inches in the height plus reach department is insane for featherweight. So I'm going to say another upset happens. I'm going to say Dan Ige spoils Sean Woodson's rise and knocks him out.
You talk about Dan Ige. I mean, he's a capital G for what he did. Last year, stepping up on days. 18 hours notice to take a fight against Diego Lopes. But to me, there's two props, and I get what you're saying there about going out there potentially. You look at those finishing props, but to me, I'll straight up just take the money line plus 140.
Yeah,
we get a little crazy, and this to me is kind of crazy when it comes to Dan Ige. Dan Ige wins via decisions plus 350.
That's a pretty good. I mean, he's such a good fighter, man. Like, Dan Ige is very, very good, and it's a shame to see him lose to Murphy, Lopez, beat Andre Fili, lose to Mitchell, beat Nate Landwehr, knock out Damon Jackson, and not be able to get over a tall, rangy guy in Sean Woodson. I mean, who the hell has Woodson fought that is anywhere the caliber of Dan Ige? It's nobody. Caceres, Jordan.
Well, there's a certain word you don't want labeled around your name. Starts with a G. Gatekeeper. That's what Dan Ige is right now.
I know, but I don't see Woodson as being anything.
You talk about Neil Magny's the gatekeeper at 170. Dan Ige is the gatekeeper at 145. Yeah. This is, to me, Dan Ige is, are you a top 10 fighter in this division, or are you a guy that's anywhere from 11 to 30?
Yeah.
And I like Sean Woodson a lot. I still have no idea how this guy makes 146. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what that weight cut looks like?
Yeah, he's got to be 175 all day long.
Oh, yeah. He's a tall, lanky dude. Great dude if you ever get a chance to talk to him. Next up, we got a female matchup. We got Xiaonan taking on Virna Jandiroba. Jandiroba is a minus 150 betting favorite, plus 125 for Xiaonan, who's 7,900 DK, $14 on FanDuel. Jandiroba, a 300 DK and $14 on FanDuel. I think you could very well make the case that Jandiroba could be potentially fighting to get a title matchup in the women's strawweight division. Of course, I think it's going to really depend on what the UFC does. If Shevchenko gets through her next title defense, maybe we see a little bit of a super fight, her and Wei Lee here. Xiaonan has gone the decision in 4 of the last 5 fights. Of course, her most recent loss is against the champion.
Yeah, very interesting fight, right? Because like Xiaonan, she's a very talented fighter, but she's not a specialist. Whereas Virna Jandiroba is an absolute specialist in the jiu-jitsu department. I mean, Virna Jandiroba will go out there and attempt takedowns at a pretty decent degree. She lands 2.29 takedowns per 15 minutes. Her takedown accuracy sits at 34%, which means she's attempting about 6.7 takedowns per 15 minutes. And she's going up against a fighter in Xiaonan who's always struggled, or, it's always been a work in progress of developing her takedown defense. Her takedown defense sits at 63%. I do think it's better than that because in the past it was poor. She's clearly rounded out that skill set with all the work at Team Alpha Male over the years. There are certain fights that totally kill that ratio. But, I do think that Virna Jandiroba will land a takedown or two here. I mean, I have her landing 2.49 takedowns in this matchup. So I think she'll get 2 takedowns, but what does she do with it? Does she control Xiaonan for the remainder of the round? I tend to think so because you have Virna Jandiroba with about 5 to 6 minutes of control time in a lot of her fights. And I have seen Xiaonan on her back, and her jiu-jitsu is just not doing it for me, man. I mean, there are certain fundamentals that she is missing, like getting an underhook in certain situations, regaining your guard, working towards getting back to half guard before you try to, regain your full guard. Like certain things, when to utilize a whizzer so your back doesn't become taken. And I don't think that you can be making those mistakes with such a specialist on the mat in Virna Jandiroba. Now, in saying that, on the feet, I think that Xiaonan clearly has an advantage here. Xiaonan's strikes attempted is at 11.08, whereas Virna Jandiroba's strikes attempted is at 5.57. So nearly double for Xiaonan on the feet, and she's going to pick apart Virna Jandiroba, as long as it remains standing. And this could be a situation of where Xiaonan gets taken down and gets controlled, but the damage, a part of each round belongs to Xiaonan. So I'm a little torn in this matchup, to be honest. And I do think that the more active fighter will clearly be Xiaonan. So I'm going to side with Xiaonan to pull this off. But I can't fault anybody for wanting to get behind Virna Jandiroba to pull this thing off. But I think Xiaonan has shown enough in her title fight and in other fights that she's an improving prospect and one that may never become champion, but one that's always going to be live to give you a tough fight. I worry about her submission defense, but the way that she fought Tabitha Ricci, Zhang Wei Li, Jessica Andrade, and Mackenzie Dern, I mean, I was worried in certain matchups, but I think that she's more than capable of winning this matchup too. So the activity is what's really giving me or making me pick Xiaonan. So give me Yan to pull off an upset.
It's one of these fights that I just don't know if I love the fantasy score upside in terms of this matchup. But if you're, maybe when you think this could be, I mean, to me, I do favor Jandiroba just a tad in this one. But overall, I just think this is a low-scoring matchup, so it's a fight that really I'm going to be sticking away from. Next up, we got Jim Miller taking on Chase Hooper. We have a 41-year-old versus a 25-year-old in this matchup. Chase Hooper, a 9-1 betting favor. Jim Miller plus 525. Miller, 6,600 on DraftKings, $8 on FanDuel. Chase Hooper, 9,600 on DK, and $23 on FanDuel. And when I initially saw this betting line, Pete, I don't know if you kind of had the same thought. I was like, holy cow, Chase Hooper is a 9-1 betting favorite.
I remember getting that text message from you, and I chuckled to myself because I was like, oh, God. I mean, either he completely disagrees with it or the number's scaring the hell out of him. I get it, right? Like, you got Chase Hooper here, who is 16 years younger than Jim Miller. And in the height plus reach department, he has 8 inches on Jim Miller. And I think styles make fights. And in this matchup, you have a style that can give Jim Miller all sorts of problems. I mean, Miller's got crazy power on the feet, but outside of the power, he fatigues over 15 minutes. He's usually the better submission grappler in every single matchup. So he has a great guillotine and a good guard to rely on if he does get taken down. I think all of that's irrelevant in this matchup, right? Like I don't think he's going to submit Chase Hooper at all. I think he'll jump a guillotine, and then you'll see Chase Hooper do his weird ass, reversals and weird just scrambles, just a very wiry and unconventional type of style. But it works, and he's so damn suffocating on the mat. He pushes a tremendous pace, and because he pushes a tremendous pace, he's in fantastic shape. And I have to tell you, the younger kid who can push, he's going to break the older guy who gets tired. And I really do see it, because if you look at the attempted per 15 minutes, man, it's ridiculous, because you have Chase Hooper attempting 9.55 strikes per 15 minutes, whereas Jim Miller's at 7.11. But it's the takedowns per 15 minutes. 1.83 takedowns landed per 15 minutes with 27% accuracy. Doesn't even really care to be all that efficient. Just wants to work, and work towards a finish. So that's about 6.78 takedowns attempted per 15 minutes, going against Jim Miller's 49% takedown defense. It's about 3 to 4 takedowns for Chase Hooper in a crazy back and forth and high paced fight. So this is one where I'm gonna go with Chase Hooper, and it's like, wow, he's a minus 700 favorite. Could you be okay with playing that? Yeah, I think salary is no problem this week. And if you look at the box scores for Chase Hooper, man, he's put together some crazy stat lines, and I absolutely love it. I mean, 120 against Nick Fiore, 134 against Vyacheslav Borshev, 113 against Clay Guida, 142 against Felipe Colares, 112.2 against Tamer. I mean, I think that Jim Miller ain't going to go down easy. And because he's not going to go down easy, what does that do? I think that boosts the totals and the attempted and just the volume of Chase Hooper, because if he goes in a tit-for-tat type of matchup against Jim Miller, he's going to get his legs chewed up with crazy, crazy leg kicks. He's going to get hit with overhand lefts and big shots that could knock out Chase Hooper. No problem at all. And then, you just keep an old dog in the game because you're not pushing the pace. I don't think any of that happens. I think Chase Hooper cooks Jim Miller. I really do. I do not like this matchup for Jim at all. So I have no problem playing Chase Hooper in this matchup. Jim Miller, I love him to death, but I don't think that this is a good matchup, and it's a perfect matchup to build Chase Hooper if you are the UFC.
I feel bad for Jim Miller, because this is where he's at now in his career. You are taking on nothing but the young and upcoming guys. You kind of wish like he was getting a matchup we're going to talk about next. We got a 41-year-old taking on a 35-year-old. But this is where Jim Miller is going to be. And by the way, like, you know what? Another reason why you love Jim Miller? Man's got the balls enough to come out this week and go, UFC Apex fight cards are killing this sport.
Yeah, I didn't see that. Said it as pre-fight scrum with me. He talked about he doesn't feel it's advancing the sport because of not being in front of fans and all that. Yeah, it's. Wow.
I will say this from a betting perspective, I don't want to touch a 9-1 odds. Don't even want to put it in a parlay piece. I mean, maybe if you find a decent number on an inside the distance on Chase Hooper, but man, don't want to touch that line. But you do make a great point of, because of what the salaries are this week, it is much easier to get to a 9,600 Chase Hooper than we typically see in other weeks. And to me, it's because of where the pricing is on the main event, co-main, and there are some intriguing underdogs throughout this fight card. Next up, we've got Darren Elkins taking on Julian Erosa. Julian Erosa, a minus 340 betting favorite. This line actually has come down a little bit. Elkins plus 260. He's 6,900 DK, $9 on FanDuel. Erosa, 9,300 DK, and $22 on FanDuel. I text Pete this earlier this week. Love me some Juicy J. I don't know if Juicy J should be a 3.5 to 1 betting favorite against anyone in the UFC. I mean, we've all done this experience with Juicy J. We've been down this road. You just know, get ready for volatility. Get ready. Yeah. I mean, just get ready, because we've been down this Juicy J drink fest, because either it's a celebratory drink, whether it's a celebratory water or it's a celebratory beer, or it's a God damn it, Juicy.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I mean, I tell you what, man, it's crazy because, Juicy J is so damn talented. Very good boxing, very good submission grappling. I think very underrated grappling. And we've seen signs of it. I mean, he's put together some spectacular submissions. His chin is his biggest weakness. But luckily, he's going up against, Darren Elkins, who he doesn't have to really worry about power coming back his way. He just has to worry about being in fantastic shape because Elkins will push you. Even if Elkins is old, Elkins will go out there and push you because Elkins has fantastic grappling. Very, very, very good control. His control time per fight is ridiculous, and it's very impressive. The war against Pineda had 3 takedowns, a reversal, 6.5 minutes of control time. The fight against TJ Brown, 3rd round submission, had 5 takedowns, a reversal, 8 minutes of control time. So if you are fighting Darren Elkins, you better be grappling. You better be wrestling. Because if you get into a grappling exchange or a scramble with him, that's where he thrives. Because on the feet, he wears damage, hence the nickname. He gets bloodied up in every single fight. You can pick him apart. He's not athletic on the feet. He's not dangerous on the feet. He's super hittable. So I think that Juicy J, Julian Erosa could go out there and land heavy combinations on him. And I think they're going to go back and forth with this type of pace. I mean, the way that my model has it, you have 5 years youth for Julian Erosa, 6.5 inch advantage in the height plus reach department for Julian Erosa. I have Erosa winning the bout, but largely due to the youth in the height and reach. Outside of that, the crazy amount of takedowns that Elkins will push and attempt is ridiculous. The strikes attempted is something that really caught my eye. Julian Erosa attempts 12.875 per 12.8 per minute, whereas Darren Elkins attempts 8.9 per minute. So clearly better striker is Julian Erosa. It's the takedown attempts that really breaks people. I mean, you have Darren Elkins with 2.86 takedowns per 15 minutes with 34% accuracy, which translates to about 8.5 takedowns attempted per 15 minutes. And he's going up against Juicy J, Julian Erosa, whose takedown defense sits at 42%. Good God, that's about 4 to 5 takedowns that he can land on Julian Erosa. But I think Erosa can just reverse and threaten and get back to his feet. And in general, I think that we're going to see a very, very, very talented back and forth type of fight. One where we have Erosa just kind of getting in the lead and keeping the gas going. Because you can't let Elkins in the fight. If you get him and you keep him in the fight, he's live to win, no matter how old and weathered he is. So it's a Julian Erosa play for me. But, man, outside of just Elkins kind of elevating the pace of the matchup, I don't know why I'd want to play Julian Erosa at this price tag. But I think that the pace of the fight could lead to an outlandish score from Julian Erosa. And it's going to be one where we're sitting back saying, damn, this is a fun fight. But give me Julian Erosa here.
Here's a question for you. Better scoring upside, Julian Erosa or Chase Hooper?
Oh, Chase Hooper. Chase Hooper all day.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Darren Elkins is just, I mean, the guy, there's a reason his nickname is the damagest guy. But you do wonder, because of all the damage he has taken throughout his career at 41 years old, are we really, about to see kind of maybe the sad ending, for him here in the UFC. Next up, we got a middleweight matchup. We got Sedrigues Dumas taking on Michal Oleksiejczuk. Oleksiejczuk, a minus 190 betting favorite, plus 160 for Dumas, who is 7,200 on DK, $11 on FanDuel. Oleksiejczuk, 9,000 on DK. And $20 on FanDuel. Hey, are you a fan of the Fighting Nerds team? You're probably, if you don't know, we're about to tell you why. You're probably going, Jason, why the hell you asking me that question right now? Where has Michal Oleksiejczuk been since the middle of February? Yep, he's been training with the Fighting Nerds.
I mean, that's what else do we have to say? Michal Oleksiejczuk wins. Move on. No, I mean, Michal Oleksiejczuk's a fantastic fighter. And now to see him direct message Kyle Bahalio and say, hey, I want to cross train with you after you beat my ass. It's awesome. And that's what the sport's about, right? I mean, like trying to patch your weaknesses, going and working with other people, getting new looks. Mihailo Oleksiejczuk can definitely round out his game by working with a very good grappler of Kyle Bahalio, because something that's troubled him throughout his entire career is his takedown defense and his grappling. I mean, the guy's been submitted 5 or 6 times in his career. He can offensively wrestle, doesn't go to the well all that much, tends to just put paws on you and try to punch you like crazy with ridiculous combinations. And I think that Mihailo Oleksiejczuk's a mean guy. He's such a mean guy. And I do think that he's going to go in here and he's going to demolish Sedrigues Dumas. The odd thing is that the strength of schedule, despite being in the UFC, isn't all that impressive for Mihailo Oleksiejczuk when you look at his entire career. His strength of schedule percentage of his opponent's win rate sits at 62%, whereas Sedrigues Dumas sits at 59%. The percentage of their win strength, 56% win strength percentage for Mihailo Oleksiejczuk in comparison to Sedrigues Dumas is 51. So something that it's not like exceptional, but I do think that everything I'm seeing on film, Mihailo Oleksiejczuk belongs here, and he's fought really, really tough competition, going from Shara Magomedov, Chidi Njokuani, Kyle Bahalio, multiple names, to now Sedrigues Dumas, who is at the bottom of the barrel, a part of the UFC. I mean, Sedrigues Dumas looked good on the Contender Series with an excellent guillotine choke, and I thought that this kid had some sneaky jiu-jitsu because of that. I haven't seen any of it. I mean, he's fought Cody Brundage. He's fought a Zaitar. He's fought multiple layups. Dennis Tululin. And I was saying to myself, like, all right, well, maybe in some of these fights he's going to pick up a win or get a finish. Just hasn't happened, man. So I think that Mihailo Oleksiejczuk's he absolutely cooks him here. So give me Mihailo Oleksiejczuk to dominate Sedrigues Dumas.
Yeah, I've never been a Sedrigues Dumas fan. And the fact that Oleksiejczuk saying, being on the Fighting Nerds, got there back in the middle of February, I do like him here in this matchup. Then we got Sumudaerji taking on Mitch Raposo. Raposo plus 145, minus 175 for Sumudaerji, who is $8,900 DK, $19 on FanDuel. Raposo, $7,300 on DK, $11 on FanDuel. One of my questions is, how does Sumudaerji lose this fight if he does not get taken down? And you want to talk about leverage plays of the week. Sumudaerji could be one of the best leverage plays of the week.
Man, it's an interesting fight, right? I mean, like coming from New England, I'm going to be rooting for Mitch Raposo like crazy. I always root for Mitch Raposo. My coach, Greg Rebello, has worked with Mitch in the past. So anybody that's a friend of Greg's is a friend of mine. So if Greg has worked with you as a fighter, of course I'm going to pull for you. And I'm going to hope that you have all the success in the world. Mitch Raposo is a very powerful flyweight. Very, very powerful. The power in his right hand is on full display within his New England career. I mean, the people he's beaten in CES, in Cage Titans. I mean, he puts power on people and he closes the gap. He's very, very explosive. Kind of similar to like a Michael Chandler with how he blitzes in and throws his combinations. So he's live to knock out Sumudaerji, who's been pretty and relatively unimpressive throughout his entire UFC tenure. The problem is the height and reach disadvantage in this matchup. I mean, you have Sumudaerji with 10.5 inches in the height plus reach department. That's a lot. That's a lot to overcome. And then, you have Sumudaerji he's been working with Team Alpha Male. Everybody in Team Alpha Male has an overhand right and a guillotine. So, I mean, like, you can think that Sumudaerji's kind of had and trained, against this style on the daily, because every single fighter over there is a wrestler with an overhand. And Mitch Raposo has all of those attributes that I speak of. The 10.5 inches in the height plus reach, I think could be a big difference maker here. Then I started to look at their records, and obviously, like, Mitch has had a very decorated career on the regional scene, throughout the amateur scene. But in the UFC, it's been, in the UFC, Dana White's Contender Series and Ultimate Fighter, he hasn't had great success, and I wanted to know why. And it's like, all right, well, I compared their careers, and Sumudaerji's fought a lot of low-level opposition as well. His opponent's record sits at 210 wins and 149 defeats, which is 58% in strength of schedule. Mitch Raposo's, on the other hand, some very, very soft matchups and, very smart from a management standpoint to build him up a nice record. 57 wins and 82 losses, which turns out to 41% on the strength of schedule meter. So definitely not a good look at all. And then when I go and I analyze their wins, you have Sumudaerji with a big drop off. Within his wins, 96 wins, 86 defeats, sits at 52%. And then when we look at Mitch Raposo's, it is 35 wins and 78 losses. So that goes down even more to 30% in the win strength department, which is a very, very low number. He developed a nice record because of the opposition that he had, but the kid is very skilled. And I remember Jason and we had a conversation. You and I might have thought that he could have won the whole damn show on The Ultimate Fighter when we heard that he was going in there. We had high hopes for him, right? And he's a kid that has all the potential in the world, but in certain step-up matchups, he just has not delivered. This could be the step-up matchup where he knocks out Sumudaerji, and we're all clapping and happy for him, and I hope so. But I think that the 10.5 inches is going to be a little much, man. So I'm going to say Sumudaerji kind of stays on the outside, sticks and moves. He was giving it to Charles Johnson, too. I thought that was a very competitive fight, and I'm pretty sure I picked him in an underdog spot. But I think that he's going to correct the situation. He's going to pick up a win here over Mitch Raposo. I hope I'm wrong, but give me Sumudaerji to win the decision.
Yeah, I like Sumudaerji in the spot. One thing to note about Mitch Raposo, he has spent the past couple weeks out in Las Vegas working at Extreme Couture, getting some work in there, along with getting some work there at PI. He's had a full camp, which has been something that I know that his team has been looking for to determine this one. But, thinking about it from, a DraftKings perspective, Sumudaerji is a guy in a large field GPP that I'm going to get to more than I would have thought I would get to prior to seeing what the ownership projections are with that. And by the way, speaking of those ownership projections, if you want to take advantage of what Stochastic has to offer, they are offering the Fight HQ listener 15% off any MMA package that they do offer. All you got to do is use that promo code FightHQ. You can click the link in the description below as well. Two more fights to break down before we start to wrap up this episode of Fight HQ. We got Tresean Gore taking on Marcelo Tulio. Tulio, a minus 400 betting favorite out of Shooter Box. Gore plus 300, who is 7,000 on DK, $10 on FanDuel. Tulio is 9,200 on DK and $21 on FanDuel. And I'm just out of the rostering Tresean Gore business at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't been bad lately because he is always live to pull off a guillotine choke. But outside of that, he's a low-volume guy, right? He's a very low-volume striker. He attempts 5.5 per minute, whereas Tulio, in small sample size, 9.84 per minute. Striking defense for Tresean Gore sitting at 47%. So I do think that Tulio will have tremendous success. I think he's a better kickboxer. I think he's a better MMA fighter. I think he just has to make sure that he doesn't have his net. He doesn't leave his neck out there for Tresean Gore to capitalize. I thought Gore would have way more success than he has had. Maybe I just kind of bought into his hype a little bit. But he really doesn't do much. So I think that we're going to see Marco Tulio go out there and pick up a pretty damn good win. On the regional scene, you saw Tulio, fight some tough levels of competition. Tresean Gore, very small, very limited record, but a lot of his career has been inside the UFC. So his strength of schedule has been pretty solid. But it's not like, Tulio's is horrible. Tresean Gore's strength of schedule sits at 67%, whereas Tulio's is at 60%. Tresean Gore's win strength is 64%, where Tulio's is 60% as well. So I think that Tulio has shown enough for me to want to back him here. I just don't know from DFS production how he will fare, but I think that he has the skills to get it done, and he has the activity to get it done because he's going to be attempting a lot more things than Tresean Gore, and I think he's going to be landing a lot more and possibly gets Tresean Gore out of there. So give me Marco Tulio to pick up a win over Tresean Gore, and it's one where I feel pretty confident in.
Yeah, I like Tulio in that one. Obviously, you got to pay a little bit of a price tag in terms of that one, but I do like him in that one. And then our opening matchup of the night, it is a female matchup. Nora taking on Haley. Haley, a plus 155 betting underdog, minus 185 for Nora, who's A600 on DK, $16 on FanDuel. Haley, $7,600 on DK, and $13 on FanDuel. And my one note on this fight, Pete, is I think this has got 15 minutes written all over it.
Yeah, I mean, you would think, right? I mean, I know Haley Cohen has been dealing with a lot of issues within her fighting career and within life as far as the medical situations are considered. This is one where, like, you have Cohen 2 years younger, 3.5 inches in the height plus reach department, probably the better wrestler of the two. She definitely can dictate where this fight takes place, and I think that Cohen is pretty good at putting opponents against the cage. The problem is that, like, the striking power between Cornell and Cohen is significant. I think that the output is very similar. But, like, I don't know. I'm not all that sold that Cohen is UFC level. Questionable fight on Dana White's Contender Series years and years ago. It's been quite some time since we've seen her compete. She could have leveled up since then. I think they're both going to attempt takedowns, oddly enough, and Cornell has landed one. In the past against Cavalcanti, but I think that going from Cavalcanti to Haley Cohen is a step down in competition, and I think that Cornell can pass the test here, and I think that it's one that I wouldn't have much conviction on, but my initial gut feeling was that Cornell is like a free square this week, because I don't know if Cohen is UFC level, but anytime you have a fighter coming off of a layoff, you got to be careful because sometimes they do surprise you. But, I'm going to go with Cornell to get this one done.
Yeah, that is the one thing about when you're talking about fighters taking, a lengthy period of time away. There really, you really don't know what has been going on inside their training each and every day, what's going to go out there. By the way, if you do have any questions, you can line those up in our YouTube chat right now. Also, you can hop out those questions in our Discord channel as well. We'll get to those questions here in a moment. I know there's been a couple of questions in Discord, so we'll get into that. But let's get into our straight-up fight picks before we get into those listener questions. The main event, I'm going to say Volkanovski reclaims his title. Give me Alex.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm going to lean Alex.
Co-main event, I'll go my first underdog in Michael Chandler.
I'm going to go Michael Chandler as well.
I like Yair Rodriguez.
Yair Rodriguez.
Underdog number 2 and Bryce Mitchell.
I'm going to go Gene Silva.
Underdog number 3, Dom Reyes.
I'm going to go Dom Reyes.
Underdog number 4, Dan Ige.
Damn, Jason. I'm going to go Dan Ige as well.
Give me for Jandiroba.
I'm going to go Xiaonan.
Chase Hooper.
Chase Hooper, big time.
Come on, I can't go against my guy, Juicy J.
Juicy J. Yeah, I like Juicy J as well.
I'll go Oleksiejczuk.
Oleksiejczuk, big time.
Sumudaerji.
Sumudaerji, but I'll be rooting for Mitch Raposo.
Tulio. And then I will go Nora in the first fight of the night.
Alrighty. There we go.
Let's get over to our guy Sam with his questions over in Discord. Best top plays. For me, as I look at my top plays, when I think about the high end, I would probably say probably Erosa and Oleksiejczuk would be at the top end in those 9,000 options for me.
I mean, I think we got great options this week, truthfully. I think that Chase Hooper's awesome. Oleksiejczuk's awesome. Juicy J, Gene Silva. I mean, I think we're loaded. I think we're pretty damn loaded at the top.
Best inside the distance fighters. Just no particular order here. Just kind of some, fighters I think I got, that's their clear path to victory. Diego Lopes, Paddy Pimblett,
Oleksiejczuk.
Okay. Maybe Dan Ige, if he can land one of those bombs that he throws there. Erosa, just because of the damage that Elkins has taken over the years. Marco Tulio, I think, would be another one for me.
Okay.
Best decision odds fighters. Even though I know you like Yair to win via stoppage, I think he's going to win via decision. I think that fight's got a good chance of going all 15 minutes. Ige and Woodson, I think, is another one to look at just because of the history, especially of both guys. That one, Xiaonan, Jandiroba, Nor and Haley, Sumudaerji, Raposo.
Yep.
Top pump plays for me. It starts with Bryce Mitchell at 7,100. If you consider 7,400 a punt play, Dom Reyes.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's a pump play. I like him.
Yeah. Favorite parlays. If I was going to go with just a straight up 3-fighter parlay on a money line, I would go Ige, Dom Reyes, and Oleksiejczuk.
I like it.
That should get you a pretty good number.
I like that. What's that? Plus 400?
It's got to be. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about. I've got two underdogs in this 3-fighter parlay.
Oh, that's got to be more than that. Yeah.
I mean, I'll pull up my my app here just to see what it gives me in terms of that one. But yeah, that's going to give you, especially when you're talking about. So if you go Ige, Reyes, and where is Oleksiejczuk at? Plus 818.
Jesus. That's a lot.
Trying to make a rent payment over here, baby.
There we go, bro. I need it. I need it, dude.
Yeah. Top leverage plays. At the high end, I think it's Sumudaerji.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of looking at fighters who are underneath 20%. Dan Ige. The opening fight of the night could be a very much of a leverage play going either side.
I know. And it's like the X factor is the absence of Haley Cohen inside the octagon in quite some time. Because that adds some variance to it.
Yeah. Jason, Pete specials. Pete, Sam, I have zero issue in rostering the first fight of the night. To me, the only reason I would play would be multi-entry and just trying to get different than the field. And then, of course, Pete specials at 8,200, 8,000. I mean, look, we talked about it. Hard fight to avoid. To me, the only reason you avoid it in lineups is just trying to get different than the field.
I know. And I just want to try to find 600 plus points without having to pull the hair out of my head, and like the one thing that I'm looking at right now, my model loves Sean Woodson over 15 minutes, but my model can't take into consideration finishes. Mm-hmm. But like the volume and the length of Sean Woodson and what he attempts, he's got slate breaking potential too. And if Dan Ige really can't close the gap, or even if he does and he doesn't land that knockout shot, like Sean Woodson, 14 inches in the height plus reach department. I mean, we've seen him put together crazy stat lines in the past. I mean, what's his best DFS performance?
I mean,
122 against Colin Anglin, 117, 107. I mean, I don't know. It's a little. I don't love it because I want to back Dan Ige, but I'm just saying my model. I'm looking at it right now and I'm scratching my head like, why does it like that so much?
Yeah, I mean, think about this. In his time in the UFC, he is at he's had 3 fights in the UFC where he's landed over 100 significant strikes. 101 against Alex Caceres, 106 against Julian Erosa, 111 against Kyle Bochniak.
It's crazy. Hey, I meant to ask you something as well. Do you have any idea how the hell that Patricio Pitbull has stats on UFCstats.com? Because it doesn't make any sense to me. Because I'm like, I don't understand. Okay, he doesn't now. No, he does. They don't have any of the fights listed from what it's from.
I see it. Where they're pulling those numbers from. I'm trying to think of who was the company that Bellator contracted. It wasn't Fight Metric, which is UFCstats.com. God, there was a time.
Did you work with them, or you did stats at one point, right? You did something.
Yeah, there was a company they used for live stats. God, I can't remember what it was. It was called Fight something. But they did have a stats department.
Huh. For Bellator.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. This would have been more in the Bjorn Rebney era of Bellator than the Scott Coker era of Bellator.
Interesting.
Yeah. By the way, I there is a underdog I do like on tomorrow's PFL. I'll mention that here. In a moment. Do want to get some other questions in here. Road to Match Series 7.5.
I think it's a good number, but I think I'm going to say more, dude. I think it's a violent night.
Give me under.
Really? Okay.
Takedown king, takedown queen of the night.
All right. Well, I'll tell you right now. I have Darren Elkins, if it goes 15 minutes, getting 4.87 takedowns within that bout. That's a lot. And I've been making a good amount of money doing these takedown props on the fighter props for DraftKings Sportsbook. Second best on the card, I have Chase Hooper at 3.45 landed. So you got Darren Elkins attempting 8.4, landing 4.8. Chase Hooper attempting 6.7, landing 3.5. So those are the two that I would say, but it's pretty chalky.
Yeah, no, I get you on that one. Top captains and MVPs.
Chase Hooper, I love that.
Could Paddy Pimblett be a very sneaky MVP?
I don't know, man. I don't know, because here's the thing, right?
25 minutes to work with, potentially.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't think he's going to out-wrestle Chandler like Chandler's a good wrestler. Chandler's a very good wrestler, but he can out-grapple him, which is completely different. So,
yeah.
He could just, a back take, backpacking people is really, really like a cheat code for MMA DFS.
Next up here, we got value plays earning 8K and a core 3 on DraftKings. Value plays for me, Chandler 7,800, Mitchell 7,100, Reyes 7,400, Ige 7,700. And Xiaonan 7,900.
I like it. Yeah.
Core 3. If I'm going with a core 3 on DraftKings, it is probably something along the lines of Oleksiejczuk, Ige, Chandler.
Okay. I like Oleksiejczuk a lot. And then we get different, and it's hard. It's hard. I really like Ige, man. I do like Ige given the spot, but I think I may like the fight. So I kind of like the Sean Woodson side as well. I just can see that fight being sneaky.
Also, I think when we talk about fighters who are a disadvantage when it comes to reach, we're in the big cage. We're not in that small cage in Apex. I like that being in the bigger cage there. Tristan, we answered 2 of your questions already with, we kind of answered one with the leverage play, but we did answer about takedown upside. Leverage play to me, just, I think Sumudaerji is potentially leverage in the first fight of the night, even though I don't love it from a GPP aspect, but if you're looking for leverage, I'll say this, there's a lot of fighters earning 20% that I find intriguing. And I think a lot of that has to do with how much ownership is going into the main event and co-main event. There definitely is a way to get different there. Ranking the 9K options. So to me, I would probably say, I might say Hooper won just because of the takedown upside and being able to rack up some points there. I'd really be surprised if that fight hits round 3. So I'd probably go Hooper, Erosa, Oleksiejczuk, Silva, Tulio.
I'm in complete agreement with you there.
Let's see here. We'll get over to YouTube. First up here from Cody goes, I missed the Elkins discussion. What are the thoughts on him in that fight? I mean, look, it's tough to trust a guy, when the amount of damage he's taken in his career, the fact that he's 41 years old, I think he's a little tough to trust in this one.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, listen, he's a pace pusher, right? He's going to shoot a ridiculous amount of takedowns. I mean, Darren Elkins will attempt probably 8.5 takedowns this fight. And then given the takedown defense of Julian Erosa, he has the ability to land between 4 and 5 of those. I just think that on the feet, he's going to come up short. Whereas, Darren Elkins will attempt 8.9 strikes per minute, whereas you're going to have Julian Erosa attempting about 12.9 strikes per minute. So I think that they're both going to have moments. I think this is a crazy, crazy pace of a fight, in one where I'm going to say it's going to elevate the potential scoring for both of them. In a loss, Elkins can smash. And in a win, I think that Erosa can reach new volume heights, because he's going to need to. He needs to be in great shape in order to beat Darren Elkins. Because I don't think it's not going to be a quick night. So I think that, for me, it's a Julian Erosa play. It's a tough matchup, but one where if you give Darren Elkins this type of fight that he wants, then you just keep grappling with him. Next thing you know, he's capitalizing on mistakes, and he's going to walk away with a victory.
PFL is tomorrow. Late start time for a fight card happening in Orlando, Florida. Prelims don't start till 9 p.m. Eastern time. Main card, 11 p.m. Eastern time. God knows if I'll make it up that late. It's a work day.
Damn.
I don't know if I can. I'm just being straight up honest with you. I mean, I'm just being real with you. Main event did go through a change today. Josh Reddinghouse. I want to say it was due to missing weight, I want to say. But
Okay.
This is a fight card that, by the way, has gone through a crap ton of changes over the past couple of weeks. Thalia Santos pulled out this week. The underdog that I find interesting is kind of want to be at plus 145 against Jenna Bishop. That is the one underdog. You got some massive betting. Liz Carmouche is a 9-1 betting favorite. Casamove is an 8-1 betting favorite. Nunez is posting a 3-1 betting favorite. It does seem like Chalk City over there. I'll say this. I really did enjoy watching the PFL event last week. I thought it was a really good event. That event definitely is a little more exciting last week with name value than what we've seen this week, but not much in terms of underdogs outside of want to be tomorrow.
Yeah, I haven't even looked at it, so I'm interested to see right now when I pull this thing up of who the hell is even fighting.
It's bantamweights and women's flyweights.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty bad when I don't know what the hell the PFL's doing, and I'm in this game big time. I mean, Leandro Higo is the main event.
Let's just say it's not good when the guy who wants to be the face of the PFL decides to start attacking the media, where one media member is just pointing out all these PFL champions that haven't fought in a year. And then Ariel basically bodied Don Davis 10-7 on Twitter. For people who have not seen, it is pretty damn comical. Pretty damn comical.
I mean, these guys, I'm looking at this fight card. This is a pathetic fight card. We complain about We complain about. I mean, the UFC is the UFC, but this is a horrible fight card. Who the hell is watching this?
It's like I told you when I talked about before we got started. When you look at the fighters who've exited PFL over last year, Gegard Mousasi, Patricio Pitbull, Ryan Bader, Aaron Pico, Yaroslav Amosov. I mean, you're talking about champions, or long, notable names in this sport. I mean, it is. And Don Davis had a tweet today that if I'm Patchy Mix, I'm Johnny Eblen, I'm Usman Nurmagomedov, I'm going, don't want to be here. Peace out. Can you get my release?
Yeah, he's a dope. He's an idiot.
I would say this right now. The moment Islam Makhachev vacates or loses the UFC lightweight title, I believe we will see the PR push for Usman Nurmagomedov to want to exit PFL and enter the UFC.
Listen, PFL, it could have been something big. This guy's an absolute fucking idiot. So he's ruined a lot of stuff with this stuff, and it's really sad because you saw the GFL, right? They canceled their 2 shows that we knew that wasn't going to happen.
Shocking.
We knew that wasn't going to happen. I mean, we called that. God,
dude,
damn, I said if this fight card ever happens, I would love to watch it. And sure enough, less than 2 weeks after I say that, GFL has canceled their events. It's like
the funniest tweet I saw was from RJ Clifford. Does a show for SiriusXM. He's a part of the UFC production team for all their events. And he had this, it was from 9 hours ago. GFL is such a mess. They managed to cancel their whole event before Dylan Dennis could pull out of it.
That's true, bro. You knew that was going to happen.
It's at the end of the day, we need more high-end promotions that gives fighters more opportunities to make money in this sport because truthfully, there's one option in all reality.
Yep.
There's I've always kind of wondered with PFL when you're doing these whole world tournament and you're saying, oh, we're guaranteeing you 2 fights a year. That's not a selling point to me.
Yeah, no, I mean, 2 fights is nothing. 2 fights is not a lot, man. I mean,
no, and especially when you're talking about the fact that the UFC has all these events to put together, I just really think you are going to see more and more. I was very optimistic about the PFL 14 months ago, 15 months ago. I'm just not that optimistic anymore about it, and I want to see them succeed. And I think that last week they finally showed evidence that they've listened to the person who tunes into their product. They really changed their broadcast for the better. It was a extremely enjoyable broadcast to watch, but it's tough for me to believe they could be any type of competitor to the UFC.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. I mean, bro, it's pathetic that how long does stuff have to go on before you make a change? I mean, if you're a part of a restaurant and people are complaining about a food item, how long before you take that damn food item off or you modify it? I mean, I don't think that food sits on the damn menu for 2-3 years before you start to listen to your customers, or in any type of business, you listen to the feedback and you make adjustments, because ultimately when you make adjustments, it's going to better your product and it's going to push you towards perfection, which should be everybody's goal in every business and in everything in life, is chasing the never-ending goal of perfection. And if you don't take constructive criticism, you are okay with being adequate. And they finally listened, which I guess better late than never. But 3-4 years, maybe it might even be longer. I don't even know how long we've been complaining about this shit for. But they finally did it. And it's like, listen, that could have been done so easily. And it's like, who's pulling the strings here? I mean, who's making these calls? It's pathetic.
Yeah, I look at it as a fight fan here too. I want to see Patchy Mix inside a cage fighting.
Yeah.
I want to see, Johnny Eblen. I want to see all these fighters. And, Corey Anderson today going, I've never sat on the sideline this long ever in my athletic journey. And you feel bad for the fighters. And, I think that, I believe you're going to see more and more of these top fighters basically say, let me go. And I think it's going to be a struggle. And this is where, and if I was in the upper management of the PFL, my vote would be is that one of three people becomes the face of your organization. Ray Sefo, Mike Kogan, or Dan Hardy. And I think it probably should be Dan Hardy. Let Ray Sefo and Mike Kogan handle the things behind the scenes. And let Dan Hardy go out there and basically tell you why you got to tune in this week. Because let him talk up all the fighters that are going to be on that card.
Yeah, bro, I just think it's a losing battle, unfortunately. Yeah, I think that things could be fixed, but whenever you have a guy that is so out of touch with reality of the sport of MMA, and he doesn't know the sport.
He doesn't know the sport of MMA. Let's call it what it is.
And that's okay to a point, but you have to understand the important parts of a business.
Yeah, he's a business guy.
But taking care of the fighters and I don't know, bro. It's a joke. It's a joke, and I wish it never happened. And I wish Scott Coker was still around. And I mean, credit to him and everybody that was a part of Bellator for creating it what it was, because this is a mockery right now.
Oh yeah, it is absolutely insane. But I am looking forward to on Saturday night sitting on my couch and watching UFC 314.
Yeah. Yeah.
We could have a lot of volatility. I think you might have to embrace volatility when it comes to your lineups.
I think you're right, buddy.
I have a feeling I'll be much more betting this card than I will be with DFS lineups.
Yeah, it's a really hard card. It really is a difficult card for me. So I don't think I'm going to be doing more than just a single lineup. And the likelihood of the single lineup crushing is very low, but I'm going to try my best, but man, it's going to be a tough one.
It's kind of like me doing the single bullet in the Masters contest.
Yeah. Right. Bro,
unfortunately did not put Scotty Scheffler in my lineup.
Bro, I was so happy and confident, and I came up with this model for NASCAR. Bro, when I tell you, I don't think we were on lap 5. And who the fuck was it? Kyle Larson just gets put into the wall, and his car's destroyed. And I'm like, are you for real? I had him winning the race. I had him showing. I had all this and that. And it was just I just burned it all. And it was 5 laps into a 300 fucking lap race. And I was like, are you kidding me?
You know
Luckily,
what?
I had bet Danny Hamlin too. So Danny Hamlin ended up winning. But still, I was like, are you kidding me?
Look, if it's going to happen, let it happen on lap 5. Could you imagine that happened with 5 laps to go?
I wouldn't have. I mean, I guess I would have minded, but I don't know. At least I didn't waste my whole afternoon. I mean, we were all sick anyways, as you can hear. But yeah, it was so tilting. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Yep.
Yeah, I'll tell you this, man. Been on medication. I don't know how much weight I've lost because I've literally had zero appetite for essentially the last week and a half.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I feel like I've dropped 10 pounds.
I understand.
This is not the way I want to lose 10 pounds, by the way. This is not the way.
Some people get excited to get sick. Like, yeah, I lost weight. It's like, oh, well.
Who the hell gets excited?
Well,
you are clearly a psychopath.
Well, they're happy. Like, hey, I lost weight. They take a positive look with it. But.
I'd rather go to the gym for an hour and sweat my ass off than deal with this crap.
Yeah, I know. You and Bree. Bree had the same thing.
Dude, I after we got done last Friday, I literally made a bank deposit, and I was like, I'm done for the weekend.
I don't.
Saturday morning, I'm like, I gotta get urgent care. Give me whatever medication you need. Shoot this thing into my system. Yeah, I mean, literally, yeah, I sat on the couch. I've watched so much TV over the last week and a half. I'm TV'd out.
Yeah, I'm not a big TV guy to begin with other than sports. So, but yeah.
Yeah.
Thankfully you're feeling better. Breeze battling being pregnant and sick. So, god dang, it's been a battle, but we're good.
Yeah, good. But looking forward to being on the couch on Saturday watching this one. That is one of the things about, being on antibiotics and not drinking alcohol. I'll sit on my couch and see what crazy stuff Dr. Joe Rogan says.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you could be on antibiotics and drinking alcohol, and it might not work out for you. But
I don't mix those. I don't mix those two. Like someone said to me, I was like, "Oh, why don't you have a drink?" I go, "No." I go, I'm trying to get this stuff out of my system. I am not trying to chance it here.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Don't want to die.
Yeah, I was talking on a podcast today, and Daniel was like, "Oh man, hey man, let's just go to the bar and watch it sober." I go, "Bro, have you gone to a sports bar and been sober and watched the UFC fights? It's not an enjoyable experience. It's not. Yeah. It's just not, because it's like, you're going to be sitting next to the dude who's just not going to know anything about combat sports, and I'm literally going to have more gray hairs.
Yeah.
I have enough as it is. Hey, you're about to be on kid number 2. Those gray hairs are coming. They're coming.
Oh, bro, I ain't worried about gray hairs. I'm going to eventually be shaving my damn head. So, hey, it's okay.
Yeah, we remember your COVID hair. We remember that.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I might have to bring that back. We keep going the way we're going. But,
no one wants to see this head bald. Trust me. No one. I got way too big of a dome. It will not be a good look. It will be a really bad look. But if I start to go bald, I'm doing it, bro. I ain't gonna be the dude with hair on the sides, bald. No, shave it all off.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to go to Turkey. Go get hair transplants.
Get on the Dana White plan?
Yeah, bro. I could.
Brian Urlacher?
Yeah, right. Bro, they got like the whole UFC. You got Francis Ngannou. You got, Modestus Bukauskas. There's like so many damn fighters that have gone out there and had it done. But,
like this.
But yeah, all in all, I'm excited to see these. It's like going in movies with no popcorn. Bro, that's honestly true. That's honestly true, Cody. So
damn true. and load up that popcorn with butter, baby. Just load it up.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be a fat kid for a couple hours.
But thanks for tuning in, guys. We appreciate it. I'm having a hard time with this fight card from a DFS standpoint, even from a betting standpoint. I'm gonna have to see the angles in order to make some money. Tune into our Discord chat, which is free to join in the link below. Get in there, start talking to the community. I mean, conversations galore 24/7 in there. Outside of that, man, good luck to everybody. And we've been having a lot of people within our community taking down tournaments. So I hope it continues for you guys, and best of luck.
Of course, we have our DraftKings contest. That contest is live. Link to that is in the description below. Of course, also, if you want to take advantage of the offer that Stochastic has for our listeners, get 15% off any MMA package that they do offer. All you got to do is use that promo code FIGHTHQ to take advantage of that offer. So that's going to do it for this episode of Fight HQ. We will talk to you next week as we break down next week's UFC event.